All right, hey guys, in this video I want to look at other social relations that evolve from a society that is going to be based around commodities. So in the last video we looked at the big one, class conflict, which Marx argues is this thing that kind of gets reified into something that is we consider normal and inevitable, but that it involves a crucial the crux of the relationship is exploitation, and it's based on power dynamics, not just economic dynamics. In this one, we're going to look at relationships that develop in the workplace and in the marketplace, and this is going to be thoroughly depressing. I apologize, because most of us are going to spend our time are not going to spend our time as capitalists, and most of us are not going to spend our time. You guys are going to get college degrees, so your life is not going to be of dire poverty. But we are going to spend our times in the workplace and in the marketplace. And Marx is going to say, remember, if we set things up based on commodities, exploitation and alienation are destiny. So sorry about this, but it's kind of worth knowing so that you can make plans to deal with it. So first of all, the workplace structure. Marx, says that we're working with other people and obviously we're doing work ourselves. So what are the specific relations? Because remember, this idea of working on things ourselves and with others, that's just part of being human. But it gets messed up by having commodities be at the, by having exchange values be at the center of everything rather than use values. So what happens? Well, he says, first of all, you end up working among these strangers. You're so devoted to your task that you don't really get to know those people. Remember, he's studying 19th century capitalism where you're working in factories. So it's a little bit different and better for us. But at the same time, your relationship with people is not based on any sort of, or at least in a fundamental way, is not based on personal interaction and caring and cooperation. It's based on you doing your thing and them doing their thing, and that's with a limited number of people. With everybody else, it's a competitive relationship. Other people are the enemy to you getting the job that you want. Now, we think about that as kind of normal. You are there, you're trying to get good grades so that you can compete with other people for internships and entry-level positions. That's not the human experience for the 300,000 years that preceded the 1800s. That's a new thing. And what Marx would describe that as is a different kind of alienation. I've talked about alienation from this creative, your creative potential as a human being. But remember, I've also kind of slid in there that we are also social beings. And Marx understood that. We're pack animals. And we're supposed to have close relationships with people, but a society based on commodities twists that. It turns us into people who view others as competitors. And Marx would say that's alienating as well. We've talked about within the workplace, your job is not, you're not working on things for you. You're working on them for the capitalist. For a lot of us, the work itself is alienating. We are distant. We're using our creative capacity, but not in the way that we would want to. And so within the workplace, this is just two different types of alienation. It's what he would say the social relations are there. Moving on to the marketplace, this is where we're buying things. And Marx would say that in terms of our relationships with others, how often do you think, look, my glasses, as an example. My glasses are a commodity. I had to pay for these. I didn't make these myself. You know how many times I've thought about the people who mined for the raw materials that went into this, or the people who took those raw materials and assembled them into the glass and into the metal, or the people who actually put together the physical glasses. I've not thought about any of them before I spontaneously just started talking about my glasses because they were the first commodity that I saw. Marx would say this fetishism of commodities, our focus on these things removes all of those social relationships from our presence of mind. I don't think about the fact that other people made these for me. Other people maybe risked their lives in mines to get the materials necessary for me to be able to see. Marx would say that our relationship with other people when we go into the marketplace is incredibly limited. We see them as a means to an end rather than as individuals who, because I'm paying them, I don't think about them as having done something incredible for me. I can see, because of these people, that I'll never ever meet. And Marx would say that that's the price you pay for living in a world that's based on commodities. If we're based on use values, the only way for me to make these things is to cooperate with other people, to work with them to do this, and in the process probably strengthen social relationships that right now I don't have at all. So that's the fetishism of commodities that obscures those social relationships. And last, I got to scroll down a little bit. Sorry, my cursor's in the wrong place. And last of all, and this is a big one for American society, the idea of consumerism didn't really exist that much in Marx's time. It becomes something, we'll meet a guy named Thorstein Veblen who will talk about this in a couple of weeks. But this idea that the things that we buy, the commodities that we buy, are more important to us. We consider themselves more of an expression of ourselves than the commodities that we help to make. The example of when I worked on an assembly line, the stuff we made were like those cardstock paper products that you would, if you go to a bank and you see like a bunch of pamphlets for like savings accounts and checking accounts. So I worked in an assembly line that made those presentation materials, not the full, not the pamphlets, but the actual cardstock big thing that's got pockets that you stick the pamphlets in. It was an absolutely horrible, horrible summer. And I will tell you that I didn't think about, oh, let me go to the bank and see the pride that I can take in the things that I made. Never. I took my check, I went and bought video games, and I considered that to be more an expression of me. So, I mean, and we take that as normal, right? Like the things that you buy are more expressions of yourself than the things that you make. But that's not how it always has been. Unless you are an artist, if you're a musician, if you're a writer, then, or a potter, something like that, then the things that you make are expressions of yourself. But for most people, their job is not, they don't consider it an expression of themselves. They consider it a thing they have to do. They sell their labor and their time in order to be able to buy things that are expressions of themselves. We take that as normal. We call that consumerism. It's not normal in terms of the way human existence has been. It used to be we made things. Now we buy things. All right. So those are a couple of other places where these social relations happen. Again, to finish up and take us back to this first point, all of this is based on Marx's insight of this idea of commodities. If you're going to set up a society with that at the foundation of everything, you're going to end up with exploitation from in terms of class conflict that we talked about last time, and you're also going to end up with these social relationships. I'm going to view others as competitors, or as the guy who annoys me by sitting next to me when I'm trying to work on the assembly line. Or I'm not going to think about them at all, despite the fact that they've done amazing things to help me out. And my relationship with myself is one of alienation and one where I am looking to other people to define me rather than defining myself. Yeah, sorry, super depressing, but that's Marx for you. Remember though, Marx has got your best interest in mind. He wants to have a revolution so that you can have a fulfilling life. I'm not saying you should go out and do that, but I am saying, like, thanks, Marx. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video.